Elders Anya tried to sit up, her muscles protesting, her mind racing. Where am I? What happened? Her voice, usually calm and authoritative, was a raw whisper. Master Chen's face drained of color. His eyes widened in a mixture of shock and terror. Where did you get that? He stammered, his voice trembling. The woman's expression softened with pity. You were found by the river. After the storm. It's a miracle you're alive. This is the village of Qinglin, child. And the Liu family has sent word. They say the decree stands. That, Qian interjected, his voice hardening, is irrelevant. What is relevant are the names within these pages. The names of those you serve, the names of those who orchestrated my accident and sought to usurp my family's legacy. Decree, Anya echoed, her heart pounding against her ribs. What decree? Panic seized Master Chen. He lunged across the counter, a desperate, animalistic cry escaping his lips, aiming for the ledger. Qian, with a swiftness that belied his former, crippled state, intercepted him. His hand clamping down on Master Chen's wrist with bruising force, the woman hesitated, then lowered her voice. The decree of marriage to Major Qian Lu. They say it was arranged years ago, a pact between your families. And now you are here, and the time has come. Tell us who you work for, Anya demanded, pressing her advantage. Tell us the full extent of their network. Anya stared, aghast. Marriage. To a man she didn't know, in this rustic, almost medieval setting. Her mind reeled. She was Dr. Anya Sharma, a leading neurosurgeon, a woman who had dedicated her life to science and saving lives. She had no family pacts, no arranged marriages. This was a nightmare, a cruel, impossible joke. But the fear in the woman's eyes, the solemnity of her tone, told Anya this was no dream. She was trapped, not just in a strange time, but in a fate she never chose. The 1990s, a crippled husband, and a life utterly alien to everything she knew. Her journey had just begun, and it was already a terrifying descent into the unknown. The journey to the Liu family estate was a blur of discomfort and disbelief for Anya, carried in a rickety, horse-drawn cart. She watched the rudimentary landscape of the 1990s unfold around her. Dusty roads, simple wooden houses, and fields tilled by hand. Every bump of the cart was a jarring reminder of how far she had fallen from her technologically advanced world. Her surgeon's hands, accustomed to the delicate precision of scalpels and sutures, now felt useless, out of place, out. Master Chen, his face contorted with fear, suddenly let out a piercing whistle. It was a prearranged signal. Before Anya and Qian could react, two burly men, hidden in the back storage room, burst out, armed with heavy wooden staves. They moved with a brutal efficiency, clearly professional enforcers. The estate itself was a sprawling complex of ancient, dark wood buildings, surrounded by high walls that seemed to press down on her, suffocating. It exuded an aura of old money and rigid tradition, a stark contrast to the modern, open-plan apartments she was used to. Servants, dressed in plain, traditional attire, moved silently through the courtyards, their faces unreadable. Anya felt like an alien, a specimen under silent, curious scrutiny. Get the ledger, Master Chen shrieked, pointing at Anya. Then she was led into a grand, dimly lit hall, where the air hung heavy with the scent of aged wood and incense. Seated at the head of a long, polished table, surrounded by stern-faced elders, was her intended husband, Major Qian Lu. The confrontation escalated into a desperate struggle. Qian, despite his prowess, was outnumbered. He fought with a fierce determination, protecting Anya, but the confined space and the sheer force of their attackers made it difficult. Anya, though not a fighter, used her agility and quick thinking. She dodged a swinging stave, grabbed a handful of dried chili powder from a nearby sack, and flung it into the face of one of the assailants. He roared in pain, momentarily blinded. He was a man of imposing stature, even seated. His shoulders were broad, his frame lean, but his legs were hidden beneath a thick blanket, and a sturdy wooden wheelchair was unmistakably positioned behind him. His face, though strikingly handsome with sharp, defined features, was etched with a profound weariness, almost a perpetual grimace. His dark eyes, when they met hers, held a depth of pain and a chilling detachment that sent a shiver down Anya's spine. He looked at her not with curiosity or warmth, but with a gaze that seemed to pierce through her, assessing and dismissing all at once. The other assailant, however, was more relentless. He cornered Anya, his stave raised high. Kian, seeing the danger, lunged forward, taking a blow to his shoulder that would have incapacitated a lesser man. Anya, seizing the opportunity, saw a stack of heavy ceramic pots. With a desperate surge of strength, she shoved the stack, sending them crashing down onto the assailant, momentarily pinning him. "Anya Sharma," an elder announced, his voice booming in the quiet hall. "You are to be wed to Major Kian Lu, as per the ancient pact between our families. You will honor this union." "Run!" Kian yelled, grabbing Anya's hand. Anya's breath hitched. This was real. This was her life now. A forced marriage to a man who looked like a ghost of his former self, confined to a wheelchair, in a world that felt centuries behind her own. The pity she felt was quickly overshadowed by a surge of resentment. How could this be her fate? She, who had dreamed of groundbreaking medical discoveries, of saving countless lives, was now reduced to a pawn in some archaic family arrangement. They burst out of the shop, Master Chen screaming curses behind them. As they fled through the narrow village streets, more figures emerged from the shadows, men with grim faces, clearly alerted by Master Chen's signal. The consortium had anticipated a reaction, but not this direct confrontation. Life at the Liu estate quickly settled into a suffocating routine. Anya was given a small, Spartan room, and her movements were subtly but firmly restricted. She was expected to learn the household customs, to defer to the elders, and to accept her role as the future wife of Major Liu. The primitive conditions were a constant source of frustration: the lack of proper sanitation, the reliance on herbal remedies for even serious ailments, the absence of any diagnostic tools. It was a medical nightmare. Anya felt a searing pain in her leg. She stumbled, looking down to see a deep gash from a thrown knife. The world spun for a moment, but Kian's grip was firm. He half carried, half dragged her, weaving through the labyrinthine alleys. His military training kicking in, she tried, hesitantly at first, to offer advice, to suggest basic hygiene practices, or more effective ways to treat common illnesses among the servants. Her suggestions were met with polite but firm resistance, sometimes even suspicion. "That is not our way," was the common refrain. Anya felt her skills, her very essence as a doctor, slowly eroding in this backward environment. They found temporary refuge in an abandoned shed on the outskirts of the village. Anya collapsed, her breath ragged, her leg throbbing. Kian quickly assessed her wound, his face grim. "It's deep," he murmured, tearing a strip of cloth from his own shirt to staunch the bleeding. Kian Lu remained an enigma. He rarely spoke, his presence a silent, brooding weight in the house. He would observe her from a distance, his dark eyes following her movements with an intensity that made her uneasy. Sometimes, she would catch a flicker of something in his gaze, not pity, but perhaps a shared sense of entrapment, or even a hint of something more profound, something she couldn't quite decipher. He was a constant reminder of her crippled fate, a symbol of the life that had been brutally snatched away from her. Yet, in the quiet moments, a strange, unsettling curiosity began to stir within her about the man who was now her reluctant husband. Life at the Liu estate continued its slow, deliberate pace, a stark contrast to the frenetic energy of Anya's former life. Days blurred into a monotonous cycle of observing archaic customs, enduring the subtle scrutiny of the elders, and grappling with the overwhelming sense of displacement. Yet beneath the surface of this enforced tranquility, Anya's keen mind, trained to dissect and analyze, began to pick up on subtle currents, hushed conversations, and unspoken tensions within the household. "They know," Anya whispered, her voice weak. "They know we have the ledger. They'll come for us." The servants, initially wary, slowly began to open up to her. Anya, with her innate compassion and medical training, couldn't stand by idly when she saw minor ailments go untreated or simple injuries fester. She started by offering basic first aid, using the limited supplies she could find: clean cloths, boiled water, and rudimentary herbal poultices she learned about from the older maids. She taught them about hand washing, about keeping wounds clean, about the importance of fresh air. These small acts of kindness, so second nature to her, were met with profound gratitude and a growing trust. Kian nodded, his eyes scanning the darkness outside the shed. "Yes, But now, we know who they are. Master Chen confirmed our suspicions, and he showed us how ruthless they are. He looked at Anya, his gaze filled with a mixture of concern and a fierce pride. You were incredible, Doctor. Your quick thinking saved us. It was through these interactions that Anya began to hear whispers about Qian Lu. They spoke of him with a mixture of awe and sorrow. Major Lu was a hero, an old gardener. His hands gnarled from years of labor, once murmured, his voice hushed. Brave beyond measure. He protected our lands, our people. During the war, Anya managed a weak smile, her mind already shifting into medical mode despite the pain. She needed to clean the wound, prevent infection. The primitive conditions were a stark reminder of her limitations, but also of her resourcefulness. The confrontation had been dangerous, a terrifying dance with death, but it had also solidified their bond, proving their capabilities as a team. The truth was unraveling, but the path to justice was fraught with peril, and they were now truly in the crosshairs of a powerful, unseen enemy. The abandoned shed offered a precarious sanctuary. Outside, the sounds of the village slowly faded, replaced by the chirping of crickets and the rustle of leaves in the night wind. Inside, the air was thick with the metallic tang of blood and the raw scent of fear. Anya worked quickly, her hands, despite the throbbing pain in her own leg, moving with the practiced efficiency of a surgeon. She cleaned the knife wound with boiled water and a crude herbal antiseptic she managed to concoct from nearby plants, then bound it tightly with strips of Qian's shirt. Another, a young kitchen maid, added, "He was so strong, so full of life. It was a terrible day when he returned, broken. It's not deep enough to cause permanent damage, but it will slow us down," Anya murmured, her voice strained. "We need to move. They'll be looking for us." The common narrative was that Qian had been gravely wounded in battle, his legs irrevocably damaged, leaving him confined to his wheelchair. But the details were always vague, shrouded in a respectful silence that felt almost rehearsed. No one spoke of the specific incident, the nature of the injury, or the circumstances of his return. It was as if the topic itself was taboo, a painful wound that the family preferred to leave unexamined. Qian, his shoulder bruised from the blow he took, nodded grimly. "They will, but now, we have the ledger, and they know we have it. That changes everything." He looked at her, his eyes intense. Master Chen's panic. It wasn't just about the ledger. It was about something else, something he was desperate to keep hidden. Anya, the doctor, found this lack of detail unsettling. Her medical instincts screamed for precision, for facts. She observed Qian more closely. He rarely left his study, a room filled with ancient texts and maps, its windows always shuttered. When he did appear, it was always in his wheelchair, pushed by a silent attendant. His face remained a mask of stoicism. But Anya, with her years of observing human suffering, could detect the subtle tremors in his hands when he thought no one was watching, the almost imperceptible clench of his jaw. Anya's mind, despite the exhaustion, latched onto his words. "You're right." He whistled, a signal, not just for the enforcers, but perhaps for someone else, someone higher up. One afternoon, she saw him in the courtyard. He was alone, his back to her, seemingly lost in thought. A small, stray cat, its fur matted and thin, limped towards him. Anya expected him to ignore it, or for the attendant to shoo it away. Instead, Qian slowly, almost imperceptibly, extended a hand. The cat, wary at first, eventually nudged its head into his palm. Anya watched, hidden behind a pillar, as a fleeting, almost tender expression crossed Qian's face, a stark contrast to his usual grim demeanor. It was gone as quickly as it appeared, but it was enough. Enough to show her a glimpse of the man beneath the mask, a man capable of gentleness, a man who was perhaps not entirely defined by his crippled fate. They spent the rest of the night huddled in the shed, their senses on high alert. As dawn painted the sky with hues of gray and pink, Qian began to analyze the ledger again, his fingers tracing the cryptic entries. Anya, despite her pain, joined him, her modern perspective offering new insights. Yet, the whispers persisted. Some spoke of his bravery, others of his silent suffering, but a few, very few, spoke of something else, of a darkness that had followed him home, a secret burden he carried. It wasn't just the war that broke him. An old cook, her eyes wide with fear, once whispered to Anya, before quickly crossing herself and retreating. There are shadows that cling to the Liu family. Dear girl, shadows that even a hero cannot escape. Look at these dates, Anya pointed out, her finger hovering over a series of seemingly random numbers. They don't align with any of the trade records, but they do align with major political events, land acquisitions, changes in local governance, even the timing of certain military deployments. Anya dismissed it as superstition, but the words lingered. The more she observed Kian, the more she felt a strange dissonance between the public narrative of his injury and the subtle signs of an underlying strength she occasionally glimpsed. Her medical curiosity, long dormant in this backward world, began to awaken. She started to wonder if Kian Lu's crippled state was not as straightforward as it seemed, and if the whispers of the past held more truth than mere village gossip. Anya's initial dismissal of the whispers as mere superstition began to crumble under the weight of her own observations. The more she watched Kian, the more the pieces of a perplexing puzzle refused to fit. His outward appearance, that of a man broken by war, was meticulously maintained. Yet, beneath the veneer, subtle inconsistencies pricked at her medical intuition, hinting at a strength and vitality that defied his supposed condition. Kian's eyes widened. You're right. These aren't just financial transactions. They're orders, directives, from someone with immense power, orchestrating everything from the shadows. He flipped through the pages, his expression growing darker with each turn. This isn't just about the Liu family's inheritance. This is about controlling the entire region. They're building an empire of corruption. One crisp morning, as she walked through the courtyard, Anya saw Kian in his study, the doors ajar. He was alone, or so he thought. A heavy leather-bound book had slipped from his grasp and fallen to the floor. Before his attendant, who had just stepped out, could return, Anya saw it. Kian, with a movement too fluid, too swift for a man with atrophied limbs, leaned down and picked up the book. His hand, as it gripped the volume, was strong, the knuckles white with effort, but undeniably capable. The action was momentary, almost imperceptible, but Anya, ever the observer, caught it. He then deliberately adjusted his position, slumping back into his wheelchair, his face resuming its familiar mask of weary resignation, just as the attendant re-entered. The most shocking truth, however, came from a seemingly innocuous entry near the back of the ledger. It was a single, coded line, followed by a date, the exact date Anya had been transported to the past. And next to it, a name, General Hu. Another incident solidified her suspicions. During a rare communal meal, a heavy ceramic pot, filled with steaming broth, slipped from a young servant's trembling hands. It was about to crash to the floor, spilling hot liquid everywhere. In a flash, Kian's hand shot out, catching the pot mid-air with an almost impossible speed and strength. His fingers, seemingly weak, held the heavy vessel steady. The room went silent. Then, with a practiced ease, he feigned a sudden spasm, letting the pot clatter to the floor, splashing harmlessly. He grimaced, apologetically, and the moment of uncanny agility was dismissed as a fluke, a lucky grab. But Anya saw the brief, intense focus in his eyes, the controlled power in his grip before he consciously relaxed it. General Hu, Anya whispered, her blood running cold. She remembered the whispers about him, a powerful, almost mythical figure in the military, revered by some, feared by many. Her medical mind began to analyze. Muscle atrophy from prolonged disuse would be evident. His limbs, though hidden, should show signs of weakening. Yet, the quick, precise movements she witnessed, the almost imperceptible tensing of muscles in his arms and shoulders, suggested a core strength that was inconsistent with a long-term, debilitating injury. His reflexes were too sharp, his grip too firm. Kian's jaw clenched. He was my commanding officer, the one who sent me on that fateful mission, the one who reported me dead. His voice was laced with a chilling realization. He didn't just report me dead. He orchestrated it. He set me up. She also noticed the way he navigated his wheelchair. While he allowed his attendant to push him most of the time, there were instances, when he believed himself unobserved, where he would propel himself with a quiet, almost effortless grace. The wheels would turn silently, his movements smooth and controlled, lacking the jerky, laborious effort one would expect from someone genuinely reliant on upper body strength alone. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place with horrifying clarity. General Hu, the revered war hero, was the true mastermind. The spider at the center of this vast web of corruption. He had used Qian as a pawn, eliminating him when he got too close to the truth, then attempting to seize the Lu family's assets through Lu Jin. Anya began to test her theory subtly. She would accidentally drop small, light objects near him, observing his reaction. Sometimes, he would allow the attendant to retrieve them. Other times, she would catch a flicker of his eyes, a brief moment of calculation, before he deliberately chose to remain still. It was a game of silent observation, a dance of veiled truths. But my arrival, Anya mused, her brow furrowed. The defibrillator, the flash, was that connected to him? The most telling sign came one evening. Anya was suffering from a severe headache, a lingering effect of her unexpected time travel. She had retreated to the quiet of the garden. Qian, surprisingly, appeared beside her, his wheelchair gliding silently. He offered her a cup of a fragrant herbal tea, brewed by the Lu family's traditional healer. As he handed it to her, their fingers brushed. For a split second, Anya felt the undeniable warmth and strength of his hand, the tautness of his muscles, a stark contrast to the limp, weak hand she had imagined. He quickly withdrew, his expression unreadable, but the sensation lingered. Qian looked at her, a strange, almost mystical light in his eyes. Perhaps, the Lu family has always been said to have a deep connection to ancient energies, to the very fabric of time. Legends speak of a hidden artifact, a relic passed down through generations, said to possess extraordinary power. My ancestors guarded it fiercely. General Hu has been trying to find it for years, believing it would grant him ultimate control. It was then that Anya knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, Major Qian Lu was not crippled. His immobility was a meticulously crafted illusion, a performance for the world. But why, what kind of secret was so profound, so dangerous, that a man would choose to live such a lie, sacrificing his freedom and his reputation? The question swirled in her mind, turning her pity into a burgeoning, unsettling curiosity. The crippled war hero was a mask, and Anya, the doctor, was determined to unveil the true face beneath. Anya's revelation about Qian's deception gnawed at her, a constant, unsettling hum beneath the surface of her daily life. The why echoed in her mind, mingling with the frustration of her forced idleness. She was a healer, a problem solver, and this archaic world, with its limited understanding of medicine, felt like a cage for her intellect. Anya felt a shiver run down her spine, a relic time travel. It was too fantastical, even for her. Yet, her presence here, the inexplicable leap through time, suddenly made a terrifying kind of sense. You think, my arrival was a consequence of his attempts to find this relic, or perhaps a defense mechanism of the relic itself. Then, the crisis struck. A frantic commotion erupted from the servants' quarters. A young boy, no older than 10, lay on a straw mat, his face ashen, his breathing shallow and ragged. His arm, swollen to an alarming size, was a grotesque purple-black, clearly infected from a deep cut. The village healer, an old woman with kind but worried eyes, had done what she could with herbs and poultices, but it was clear the boy was fading fast. "The evil spirits have taken hold," she murmured, her voice laced with despair. "There is nothing more to be done." Qian shrugged, a grim expression on his face. "I don't know. But your sudden appearance, a doctor from the future, with knowledge that defies this era, it's too coincidental. Perhaps the relic, sensing the impending danger from General Hub, somehow pulled you here, a desperate, unforeseen intervention. Panic rippled through the household. The boy was the son of one of the most loyal servants, and his impending death cast a pall over the entire estate. Anya, despite the elder's initial dismissal of her modern ideas, could not stand by. Her medical oath, ingrained in her very being, screamed for action. The realization was staggering. Anya wasn't just an accidental tourist in the past. She was a piece of a larger, cosmic puzzle. Her purpose here extended beyond merely surviving or even helping Qian. She was an unwitting participant in a battle for ancient power, a battle that had reached across time to pull her into its vortex. "He needs antibiotics," Anya declared, her voice cutting through the mournful whispers. And the wound needs to be cleaned thoroughly. The infection is spreading. So, General Hu is the true enemy, Anya stated, her voice firm, the pain in her leg momentarily forgotten. And he's after this relic. He needs to be stopped. The elders looked at her with a mixture of confusion and suspicion. Antibiotics. What is this strange magic? One scoffed. Kian nodded, his eyes burning with a renewed resolve. Indeed, but he is powerful, cunning, and ruthless. He has the military, the government, and half the underworld in his pocket. We cannot confront him directly. Not yet. It's not magic, it's medicine, Anya retorted, her patience wearing thin. He will die if we do nothing. I can help him. Just give me clean water, some strong alcohol if you have it, and clean cloths. The truth had unraveled, revealing a conspiracy far grander and more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Anya's journey to the past was no accident, but a twist of fate intertwined with an ancient secret and a looming threat. They were no longer just fighting for Kian's legacy, they were fighting against a force that sought to control destiny itself. The stakes had never been higher, and their unlikely alliance was about to face its greatest test. The revelation of General Hu's involvement and the existence of an ancient relic had elevated their struggle from a family squabble to a high-stakes battle for power and, potentially, the very fabric of time. Huddled in the abandoned shed, with Anya's leg wound bandaged and throbbing, they began to forge a plan. Direct confrontation with General Hu was suicide. He commanded vast resources and a ruthless network. Their only weapon was their combined intellect and the element of surprise. A tense silence filled the room. The boy's mother, tears streaming down her face, looked from the elders to Anya, a desperate plea in her eyes. It was Kian, observing from the doorway of his study, who finally broke the stalemate. His voice, though low, carried an undeniable authority. Let her try, he commanded, his gaze sweeping over the hesitant faces. What more do we have to lose? We need to expose him, Anya stated, her voice firm despite her exhaustion. Not just to the Liu family, but to a wider authority, someone who can stand against him. His words, unexpected and firm, seemed to cut through the superstition. With a surge of adrenaline, Anya took charge. She had no surgical tools, no sterile environment, but she had her knowledge. She instructed the servants to boil water, to tear strips of cloth for bandages. With painstaking care, she cleaned the boy's infected arm, draining the pus, her hands working with a practiced efficiency that astonished the onlookers. She then fashioned a crude, yet effective, splint to immobilize the limb. Kian nodded, his eyes fixed on the flickering oil lamp. The military command. There are still honorable men, but they are cautious, easily swayed by Hu's influence. We need undeniable proof, something that cannot be dismissed as a mere accusation. For the antibiotics, Anya had to improvise. She remembered a traditional remedy from her own past, a powerful, naturally occurring antiseptic. She instructed the servants to find a specific type of mold that grew on stale bread, carefully explaining how to prepare a crude, topical paste. It was a long shot, a desperate measure, but it was all she had. Their strategy was a delicate dance of deception and calculated risks. The first step was to discredit Lu Jin, not just to remove him as a threat, but to sever the consortium's immediate control over the Liu family's assets. Anya suggested a psychological play. Lu Jin is arrogant and impulsive. We can use that against him. Make him believe he's on the verge of victory, then pull the rug out from under him in a public, undeniable way. For days, Anya barely left the boy's side, monitoring his fever, changing his dressings, and praying for a miracle, slowly, agonizingly. The fever began to recede, the swelling in his arm lessened, and the angry purple began to fade. On the fourth day, the boy opened his eyes, weak but lucid. He was going to live. They decided to leak fragments of information from the ledger, carefully chosen details that would make Lu Jin appear incompetent and reckless to the other elders, without revealing the full depth of General Hu's conspiracy. Anya, using her keen observation skills, identified the most traditional and influential elders, those who valued honor and lineage above all else. A collective gasp of relief swept through the household. The boy's mother wept tears of joy, bowing repeatedly to Anya. The village healer, initially skeptical, now looked at Anya with profound respect. You have a gift, "Doctor," she said, her voice filled with awe. "A powerful gift." Kian, meanwhile, began to subtly manipulate the flow of information within the estate, spreading rumors that he was recovering, that his crippled state was a temporary setback. This fueled Lu Jin's paranoia, making him desperate to finalize his takeover. Anya had saved a life, not with 21st century technology, but with her fundamental medical knowledge and sheer determination. This act, a beacon of modern science in a world steeped in tradition, earned her a grudging respect from some of the elders and an outpouring of gratitude from the servants. She was no longer just the strange, unwilling bride, she was the miracle doctor. The opportunity arose during the annual ancestors ceremony, a sacred event where all the Lu family elders gathered. It was a place of tradition, but also a stage for public displays of power and influence. Lu Jin, emboldened by what he believed was his imminent triumph, planned to use the ceremony to formally announce his ascension to a more prominent role within the family, effectively sidelining Qian. But her triumph was not without consequence. While many hailed her, a few of the more conservative elders, and particularly a stern-faced, ambitious cousin of Qian's named Lu Jin, viewed her methods with deep suspicion. Her magic was unsettling, a challenge to their established ways. Anya could feel their cold stares, their thinly veiled resentment. She had gained a foothold, a glimmer of hope, but she had also drawn unwanted attention. And from the shadows, Qian Lu watched, a subtle, almost imperceptible nod of approval crossing his face, a silent promise of protection that Anya, in her newfound exhaustion, almost missed. Anya's triumph in saving the boy, while a profound personal victory, had irrevocably altered her position within the Lu household. She was no longer merely the unwanted bride, she was the miracle doctor, a figure of both awe and apprehension. The gratitude of the servants was palpable, their eyes now holding a newfound respect. Even some of the more open-minded elders began to seek her counsel, albeit cautiously, for minor ailments. Anya and Qian prepared their trap. Anya, using her understanding of chemistry, concocted a harmless but visually striking ink that would react with a specific type of paper. Qian, with his intimate knowledge of the estate's layout and the ceremony's rituals, planned to subtly replace a key document Lu Jin would present, a ceremonial scroll outlining his proposed new authority, with a doctored version. However, the light of her success cast long, unsettling shadows. Lu Jin, Qian's ambitious cousin, became increasingly hostile. His stares, once merely suspicious, now held a venomous intensity. He was a man steeped in tradition, fiercely protective of the Lu family's old ways, and Anya's modern interventions were a direct challenge to his authority and worldview. He saw her as an interloper, a disruptor, and a threat to the established order he so carefully cultivated. On the day of the ceremony, the air was thick with incense and anticipation. Lu Jin, resplendent in ceremonial robes, stood before the assembled elders, a smug smile on his face. He began to read from the scroll, proclaiming his loyalty and his plans for the family's future. One evening, Anya found her small, albeit Spartan room ransacked. Her few personal belongings, the simple clothes she'd been given, were strewn across the floor. Nothing of value was taken, but a small, crude drawing she had sketched of a modern hospital. A desperate attempt to cling to her past was torn to shreds. It was a clear message, a chilling warning. But as he read, Anya, positioned subtly near the altar, executed her part of the plan. With a quick, almost invisible movement, she activated a small, concealed device she had fashioned, a tiny, pressurized spray of her special ink. The ink, designed to react with the paper of the scroll, began to reveal hidden text. Anya confronted Lu Jin, her voice trembling with anger, but her eyes firm. "Did you do this?" she demanded. Slowly, horrifyingly, as Lu Jin continued to read, words began to bleed through the scroll's surface, appearing as if from nowhere, not the ceremonial text, but fragments of the coded messages from Master Chen's ledger. Whose orders? Land acquisition. Bribe payment. The elders gasped, their faces turning from solemnity to shock. He merely sneered, a cold, calculating glint in his eyes. "Perhaps you should be more careful with your belongings, Doctor. This is not your world, and some things are best left undisturbed." His words were veiled, but the threat was unmistakable. He was testing her, asserting his dominance. Lu Jin faltered, his eyes widening in terror as he saw the incriminating words appear before him. He tried to hide the scroll, to crumple it, but it was too late. The evidence, seemingly magically appearing, was undeniable. The subtle acts of sabotage escalated. Anya found her herbal remedies tampered with, her clean cloths mysteriously soiled. Whispers of her strange magic and unnatural influence began to circulate among the more superstitious villagers, subtly fueled by Lu Jin's machinations. He spread rumors that her methods were dangerous, that she was disrespecting the ancestors, even that she was a witch. Qian, who had been observing from his wheelchair, now rose, his posture commanding, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. "Cousin," he said, his tone cold and clear, "it seems your loyalty lies not with our ancestors, but with those who would destroy our family for their own gain." He then presented the actual ledger, its pages open to the incriminating entries, a stark contrast to the magically revealed text on the scroll. One afternoon, while Anya was tending to a sick child in the village, a heavy wooden beam accidentally fell from a nearby scaffolding, narrowly missing her head. Only Qian's sudden, sharp cry of warning, echoing from the main estate, made her instinctively duck, saving her from serious injury. She looked back, but Qian was already retreating into the shadows of his study, his face unreadable. The incident was dismissed as a construction mishap, but Anya knew better. This was no accident. The elders erupted in a furious clamor. Lu Jin, exposed and humiliated, was seized by the family guards. His betrayal, made public and undeniable, shattered his influence. The first battle was won. The forced marriage, which had initially seemed like a cruel twist of fate, now began to reveal its darker undertones. Anya realized that Qian's crippled state was not just a personal secret, but a strategic deception, likely designed to protect him from powerful enemies. And her sudden appearance, her forced union with him, might be part of a larger, more sinister scheme involving the Lu family's internal power struggles. The sterile scent of antiseptic, usually a comforting aroma, now clung to Dr. Anya Sharma like a shroud of terror. One moment, her gloved hands were meticulously closing an incision, the rhythmic beep of the cardiac monitor, a familiar lullaby in the operating room. The next, a blinding flash erupted from the antiquated defibrillator, followed by a deafening crack that seemed to tear the very fabric of reality. The world spun, a kaleidoscope of fluorescent lights and worried faces blurring into an indistinct vortex, then silence and darkness. The true nature of the danger became terrifyingly clear during a tense family meeting. Lu Jin, with a smug smile, presented a forged document, claiming it was a newly discovered clause in the ancient pact, stating that if Major Qian Lu remained incapacitated for a certain period, his authority and inheritance would pass to the next male heir, namely, Lu Jin himself. The elders, swayed by tradition and Lu Jin's persuasive arguments, seemed on the verge of accepting it. Their next move had to be precise, a surgical strike against the kingpin himself. Qian, leveraging his remaining loyal contacts within the military, discovered that General Hu was hosting a clandestine meeting at a heavily fortified, remote mountain retreat. This was where he conducted his most illicit dealings, far from prying eyes. It was a fortress, but also a cage. Anya watched Qian, who sat silently, his face a mask of weary acceptance. But she saw the flicker in his eyes, the almost imperceptible clench of his jaw. He was trapped, cornered by a conspiracy that had been meticulously planned. It was then that Anya understood her forced marriage was not just about tradition. It was a desperate attempt by someone to control Qian, or to gain access to his power. The crippled husband was a target, and Anya, by extension, was now caught in the crosshairs of a dangerous game. The stakes were higher than she could have imagined, and the shadow of betrayal loomed large over the ancient Lu estate. The tension in the Lu family hall was suffocating. Lu Jin's smug smile, the forged document, and the elders' wavering gazes pressed down on Qian, threatening to strip him of everything. Anya watched him, her heart pounding. She knew his crippled state was a facade, but she hadn't anticipated the depth of the conspiracy, nor the immediate danger it posed. She saw the flicker of defiance in Qian's eyes, a silent battle raging within him. "This is our chance," Qian stated, his voice grim but resolute. He will have his most trusted enforcers there, and probably the relic itself. It's a high-risk, high-reward situation. Just as an elder was about to announce their decision, a piercing shriek echoed from outside the hall. Fire, fire in the West Wing. Anya, her mind racing, began to formulate a plan. We can't storm it. We need to infiltrate. And we need to ensure that when we expose him, there's no way for him to escape or deny it. She thought of the 21st century's surveillance technology, its ability to capture undeniable evidence. In the 1990s, that was impossible. But the principles remained. Chaos erupted. Servants screamed, elders scrambled, and the carefully constructed facade of the meeting shattered. Anya's medical instincts kicked in. Fire meant injuries, burns, smoke inhalation. She started to move towards the commotion, but a strong hand suddenly gripped her arm. Their plan was audacious. Kian, using his old military connections, arranged for a small, loyal unit of soldiers, men who still believed in his honor, to be stationed near the retreat, ostensibly on a training exercise. They wouldn't engage directly, but would be ready to act once the signal was given. It was Kian. He stood, not with the laborious effort of a man rising from a wheelchair, but with a fluid, almost predatory grace. His eyes, usually shadowed, were now alight with a fierce, cold determination. The wheelchair, moments ago his prison, now lay discarded behind him. Anya gasped, not in fear, but in profound shock and a strange sense of vindication. Her suspicions were confirmed. Anya, meanwhile, focused on the infiltration. She recalled her knowledge of basic explosives and diversionary tactics from old spy movies. Adapting them to the limited resources of the 90s, she fashioned crude, yet effective, smoke bombs using local materials, designed to create a momentary diversion and confusion. "Stay close," Kian commanded, his voice a low growl, utterly devoid of the weariness she had grown accustomed to. He moved with astonishing agility, pushing through the panicked crowd, his broad shoulders clearing a path. Anya, still reeling from the sudden revelation, followed him, her mind struggling to reconcile the helpless invalid with the powerful man now leading the charge. Their entry point was a ventilation shaft Kian remembered from his time in the military, a forgotten access point to the retreat's lower levels. Under the cloak of a moonless night, they scaled the treacherous mountain path. Anya's leg, though still aching, held up under the strain, her determination overriding the pain. They reached the West Wing to find it engulfed in flames, thick, acrid smoke billowing into the night sky. A section of the roof had collapsed, trapping several servants inside. The villagers, armed with buckets of water, were fighting a losing battle against the inferno. They slipped into the ventilation system, the air thick with dust and the faint scent of stale cigars. Anya, ever the quick thinker, used a small, hand-cranked fan they brought to create a subtle draft, pulling the smoke from her improvised bombs towards the main meeting hall. "The children," a woman cried, pointing frantically towards a small, burning annex. "My children are still inside." As the meeting commenced, General Hu, a man of imposing presence and chilling charisma, began to address his inner circle. He spoke of their grand vision, their control over the region, and his plans to finally acquire the Liu family relic, which he believed would grant him ultimate power. Without a moment's hesitation, Kian moved. He didn't hobble or limp. He ran, a blur of strength and speed, dodging falling debris with impossible reflexes. He kicked open a burning door, disappearing into the smoke and flames. Anya watched, mesmerized, as the crippled Major Liu transformed into a force of nature, a true warrior. Suddenly, smoke began to billow from the vents, thick and disorienting. Chaos erupted. Guards scrambled, their vision obscured. This was their moment. Moments later, he emerged, coughing, his clothes singed, but carrying two terrified children in his arms. He handed them over to their weeping mother, then turned back towards the inferno, his eyes scanning for more. Kian, moving with the silent precision of a ghost, emerged from a hidden panel, a pistol in his hand. He disarmed the nearest guards, his movements swift and brutal. Anya followed, her heart pounding, but her gaze fixed on her objective, the relic. Anya, meanwhile, was already tending to the injured. A young man lay unconscious, his leg pinned under a fallen beam. She assessed the injury, her mind racing. "We need to lift this," she shouted, pointing to the beam. General Hu, despite the confusion, remained surprisingly calm. "So, the crippled dog returns," he sneered, his eyes narrowing as he recognized Kian. "And you brought a little witch with you." Kian, having ensured the children were safe, strode over. With a grunt of effort that belied his true strength, he single-handedly heaved the heavy beam, freeing the trapped man. Anya quickly pulled the unconscious servant to safety, her hands already checking for a pulse, assessing his breathing. "The crippled dog is here to collect what's owed, General," Kian retorted, his voice cold as steel. "And the witch is here to expose your crimes." The fire was eventually brought under control, but the damage was extensive, and the shock of Kian's sudden, undeniable display of strength rippled through the entire estate. Lu Jin, who had watched the entire spectacle, with a face drained of color, now stood pale and trembling. His carefully constructed plot had just been irrevocably undermined. A fierce battle ensued. Kian engaged General Hu's personal guard, a group of elite, ruthless fighters. He moved like a whirlwind, his years of training and his hidden strength unleashed. Anya, meanwhile, spotted a heavily guarded display case at the back of the room. Inside, bathed in a faint, ethereal glow, was a small, intricately carved wooden box. The relic. Later that night, after the injured were tended to and the initial chaos subsided, Kian found Anya in the makeshift infirmary, quietly cleaning wounds. He dismissed his attendant, and for the first time, they were truly alone. He stood before her, not in his wheelchair, but on his own 2 feet, a formidable presence. As Kian fought, Anya used the smoke and the confusion to her advantage. She dodged a guard, her medical bag swinging as a makeshift weapon. She reached the display case, but it was locked. General Hu, seeing her attempt, barked an order. "Stop her. Don't let her touch it." "You saw," he stated, his voice devoid of apology, his eyes meeting hers directly. Anya knew she had to act fast. She remembered a trick from her surgical days, a way to apply precise pressure to dislodge a stubborn mechanism. With a desperate surge of adrenaline, she found a loose panel on the side of the case, applied pressure with her thumb, and with a satisfying click, the lock sprang open. She grabbed the relic, its ancient wood warm beneath her fingers, a strange energy tingling through her veins. Anya nodded, her own gaze unwavering. "Yes, you're not crippled." Just then, General Hu, breaking free from Kian's engagement, lunged at Anya, a dagger glinting in his hand. "Give me that!" he roared, his eyes wild with avarice. He sighed, a deep, weary sound. "No, I was injured, gravely, during a special operation, not in my legs, but in my spine. It was supposed to be a paralyzing injury, but I recovered, slowly, painfully. I recovered. My strength returned, my mobility. But the recovery was a secret I had to keep." Kian, seeing the imminent danger, moved with impossible speed. He threw himself between Anya and Hu, taking the dagger blow to his arm, but he didn't falter. With a roar of fury, he retaliated, his fist connecting with General Hu's jaw. The general staggered, momentarily stunned. He paused, his gaze distant, haunted. "The operation, it wasn't just a battle. It was an exposure. I uncovered a vast network of corruption, involving powerful figures, even within the military and government. They wanted me dead, or, failing that, incapacitated. My crippled state was my only protection. It made me harmless, ignorable. It bought me time. Now, Anya!" Kian yelled, his voice strained. Anya stared, the pieces of the puzzle finally clicking into place. And the marriage, to me, Anya, holding the relic, knew what she had to do. She had brought a small, modified camera from her time, a relic of her own, powered by a crude battery pack. It was designed to capture images, to record. She aimed it at General Hu, who was now recovering, his face contorted with rage. Kian's eyes softened, a flicker of something akin to regret, or perhaps even tenderness, crossing his face. That was a desperate measure. My family, under pressure, believed it was the only way to secure my lineage, to tie me to someone who could be controlled, someone who wouldn't question my condition. They chose you, a doctor, hoping you would simply accept my fate. They didn't know you would be different. General Hu! Anya's voice rang out, clear and strong, cutting through the chaos. The truth will be revealed. She activated the camera. its flash blinding, capturing a series of images of General Hu, his face contorted in a moment of pure villainy, surrounded by his illicit dealings. It was a primitive form of evidence, but undeniable in this era. He took a step closer, his presence commanding. My enemies believe me weak, broken. They believe they are slowly gaining control of my family's legacy through Lu Jin, but they underestimate me. And now, they underestimate you. He looked at her, a silent question in his eyes. Can you trust me? Doctor, can you forgive the deception? Simultaneously, Qian, with a final, powerful surge, disarmed General Hu's remaining guards. The sounds of distant sirens, arranged by Qian's loyal unit, began to wail, growing louder. The military command, alerted by a prearranged signal from Qian, was on its way. Anya looked at the man before her, not the helpless invalid, but the powerful, strategic major, burdened by a dangerous secret, fighting a hidden war. Her resentment faded, replaced by a profound sense of understanding and a dawning realization that her unexpected journey to the past had just taken a far more perilous, and perhaps purposeful, turn. The silence in the makeshift infirmary stretched, heavy with unspoken truths, and the echoes of a world Anya had never imagined. Qian stood before her, no longer the weary, crippled man, but a formidable presence, his gaze piercing, his words a revelation that reshaped her entire understanding of her predicament. Her initial resentment, a bitter taste in her mouth since her arrival, began to dissipate, replaced by a profound sense of awe and a burgeoning, unsettling trust. General Hu, seeing his empire crumble, his face a mask of disbelief and fury, made a desperate lunge for the relic. But Qian, his arm bleeding, intercepted him, throwing him against a wall. The general collapsed, defeated, his reign of terror brought to a sudden, brutal end. Trust you, Anya repeated, her voice barely a whisper. The question wasn't accusatory, but born of genuine bewilderment. Her life had been upended, her future hijacked, all for a secret. Yet, looking at the raw honesty in his eyes, the weight of the burden he carried, she found herself nodding. Yes, she said, more firmly this time. I can trust you. But why me? Why involve me in this deception? The climax was over. Justice, raw and hard-won, had been demanded. Anya held the relic, its glow pulsating softly, and looked at Qian, his face streaked with sweat and blood, but his eyes shining with triumph. They had faced the darkness, and together, they had prevailed. The wailing sirens grew louder, piercing the night, signaling the arrival of Qian's loyal military unit. The mountain retreat, once a bastion of General Hu's illicit empire, was now swarming with soldiers. General Hu and his inner circle, dazed and disoriented by Anya's smoke bombs and Qian's relentless assault, were swiftly apprehended. The incriminating ledger, along with Anya's primitive but undeniable photographic evidence, was immediately secured. Qian's expression softened, a flicker of something akin to vulnerability crossing his features. My family believed a doctor, especially one with no ties to this world, would simply accept my condition and be easily managed. They thought you would be a docile, convenient pawn. They didn't anticipate your resilience, your intelligence, or your unique abilities. He gestured vaguely, acknowledging her medical prowess. And now, your presence, your unexpected skills, have become an asset I never knew I needed. In the chaotic aftermath, Anya, despite her exhaustion and the throbbing pain in her arm, moved with a doctor's precision, tending to Qian's dagger wound. It was deep, but not life-threatening, a testament to his sheer resilience. As she cleaned and bandaged it, their eyes met, a silent acknowledgement of the battle they had just won, and the profound bond forged in the crucible of danger. But as the chaos subsided, Anya felt a chilling certainty. General Hu would not take this lightly. He would know that Qian was not crippled, that the ledger was compromised, and that a new, dangerous player, Anya herself, was now actively working against him. The battle of wits had just begun, and the next move, they knew, would be far more perilous. They had exposed a pawn, but the king remained hidden, and he was about to make his move. The exposure of Lu Jin had sent ripples of unease through General Hu's vast network. He was a man who abhorred loose ends, and Anya and Qian were now glaringly obvious ones. The silence that followed Lu Jin's downfall was not one of defeat, but of a predator regrouping, preparing for a decisive strike. Kian knew who would not rest until he had the ledger, the relic, and their lives. News of General Hugh's arrest and the exposure of his vast corruption network sent shockwaves through the region. The military command, initially skeptical, was forced to confront the undeniable evidence. Investigations began, arrests followed, and the corrupt officials and merchants who had profited from Hugh's schemes were systematically brought to justice. It was a slow, arduous process, but the wheels of justice, once set in motion by Anya and Kian, ground relentlessly forward. The confession hung in the air, a strange blend of apology and reluctant admiration. Anya felt a shift, a tangible change in the dynamic between them. The forced marriage, once a symbol of her imprisonment, now felt like a strange, twisted thread of destiny that had bound them together for a purpose far grander than she could have conceived. Back at the Liu family estate, the atmosphere was one of stunned relief, followed by a quiet reckoning. Liu Jin, stripped of his influence and exposed as a conspirator, faced the severe judgment of the elders. His ambition had led him down a dark path, and he was banished from the family, his name forever tarnished. The Liu family, though bruised by the scandal, emerged with its honor restored. Its legacy secured under Kian's rightful leadership, Kian walked over to a small, worn map tacked to the wall, a map of the region, marked with faded ink. He pointed to various locations, his voice low and intense. They are powerful. Military officials, corrupt bureaucrats, even some influential merchants. They exploited the chaos of the war, enriching themselves, seizing land, and silencing anyone who stood in their way. My operation was meant to expose them, but they moved faster than I anticipated. They ambushed my unit, leaving me for dead. I survived, but I knew I couldn't return openly. Not yet. Kian, no longer needing to feign his disability, publicly revealed his recovery. The initial shock among the family and servants quickly gave way to immense pride and admiration. He was not just a survivor, he was a true hero, who had fought a hidden war to protect them all. His return to full leadership was met with universal acceptance, and his authority, now truly earned, was unquestioned. He turned back to her, his gaze unwavering. My crippled state allowed me to observe, to gather intelligence, to understand the full extent of their reach. Liu Jin is merely a puppet, a greedy fool they are using to gain control of the Liu family's resources. They believe I am a spent force, that my legacy will fall into their hands. A grim smile touched his lips. They are gravely mistaken. Anya, the miracle doctor, who had arrived under such strange circumstances, was no longer viewed with suspicion or pity. She was hailed as a savior, her modern medical knowledge now openly embraced. The Liu family, eager to rebuild and move forward, sought her counsel on improving the health and well-being of their community. She began to establish a rudimentary clinic, introducing basic hygiene practices, preventative care, and more effective treatments for common ailments. Slowly but surely, bringing a touch of the 21st century to the 1990s, Anya felt a surge of adrenaline, the familiar thrill of a complex problem presenting itself. This was no longer just about her survival. It was about justice. Her medical training had always been about identifying the root cause of a problem and finding a solution. This was a different kind of disease, a societal one, but the principles felt similar. In the quiet evenings, after the day's work was done, Anya and Kian would often sit together in the peaceful courtyard, the ancient relic glowing softly between them. The relic, a small, intricately carved wooden box, seemed to hum with a subtle energy. Anya, the scientist, still struggled to fully comprehend its nature or its role in her time travel. But Kian, the man of tradition and ancient lore, believed it had chosen her, bringing her to their time for a reason. We need a plan, Anya stated, her voice firm, her doctor's resolve returning. You have the strategic mind, the knowledge of this world and its players. I have a different kind of knowledge, modern methods of investigation, of evidence gathering, of understanding human behavior, things they won't anticipate. Their relationship, born of a forced marriage and forged in the fires of conspiracy, had blossomed into something profound and unexpected. The initial resentment Anya felt had long since dissolved, replaced by a deep respect for Kian's unwavering courage, his strategic brilliance, and the quiet strength of his character. Kian, in turn, was captivated by Anya's sharp intellect, her boundless compassion, and her relentless pursuit of justice. Kian's eyes widened almost imperceptibly, a spark of interest igniting in their depths. Modern methods. They found solace in each other's company, sharing stories of their vastly different worlds, bridging the gap of decades with shared laughter and understanding. The love that grew between them was not a whirlwind romance, but a steady, unshakable bond, built on mutual trust, shared adversity, and a profound appreciation for the unique strengths each brought to their unlikely partnership. Yes, Anya explained, her mind already racing through possibilities. Forensics, for example. The way we analyze clues, trace connections, even understanding psychology, how people think, their motives. In your time, these concepts might seem alien, but they are powerful tools. She paused, a mischievous glint in her eyes. And I know a thing or two about patching people up, should things get messy. The aftermath was a period of healing, of rebuilding, and of new beginnings. The shadows of betrayal had lifted, and the light of justice shone brightly. Anya, once desperate to return to her own time, now found herself contemplating a future she had never envisioned. A future intertwined with the man who was once her crippled husband, and the ancient land that had become her unexpected home. Months turned into a year, then two. And Anya found herself not merely adapting to the 1990s, but thriving within it. The initial shock of displacement had long faded, replaced by a profound sense of purpose and belonging. The rudimentary clinic she had established at the Lou estate flourished, becoming a beacon of modern healthcare for the surrounding villages. She taught basic anatomy and hygiene, trained local women as nurses, and even performed minor surgeries, improvising with the limited tools available, her hands as steady and precise as they had been in the 21st century. Her reputation as the miracle doctor solidified. But now it was built on tangible, life-saving work, not just a single dramatic rescue. A faint smile, the first genuine one Anya had seen on his face, touched Kian's lips. It transformed his stern features, revealing a hint of the man he might have been before the war, before the deception. An unlikely alliance. Doctor, a crippled major and a time-traveling physician, Kian, fully restored to his position and power, proved to be an enlightened leader. He used his influence to dismantle the remaining vestiges of General Hu's corruption, ensuring that justice was not just served, but maintained. He invested in the community, supporting Anya's clinic, improving infrastructure, and fostering a sense of unity and prosperity that had been absent for years. He was a man of action, but also of vision, and his quiet strength was the bedrock upon which their new life was built. Indeed, Major, Anya replied, a sense of purpose settling over her. The fear hadn't entirely vanished, but it was now tempered by a newfound determination. She was no longer a victim of fate, she was a participant, an active player in a dangerous game. Her journey to the past, once a terrifying accident, now felt like a strange, unforeseen destiny. Together, they would unravel the web of deceit that entangled the Liu family, and perhaps, in doing so, find their own place in this unfamiliar time. With the unspoken pact sealed, the Liu family estate transformed from Anya's gilded cage into a strategic command center. The forced marriage, once a symbol of her despair, now became their cover, allowing them to move within the household and the village with a degree of unquestioned legitimacy. Kian, shedding the pretense of his disability in their private moments, revealed a mind as sharp and intricate as any surgeon's, mapping out the complex network of his enemies. Their relationship deepened with each passing day. The forced marriage had become a true partnership, built on unwavering respect, shared values, and a love that transcended the decades separating their origins. Anya found in Kian a kindred spirit, a man who understood the weight of responsibility and the pursuit of justice. He admired her intelligence, her compassion, and her fierce independence. They spent evenings discussing everything from ancient philosophies to modern scientific theories, their conversations bridging the gap between their worlds, creating a unique tapestry of shared understanding. Their first target was Liu Zhen. Kian explained that his cousin, while ambitious and greedy, was merely a pawn, a predictable tool in the hands of the true masterminds. He's too simple-minded to orchestrate something this elaborate, Kian mused. tracing a finger over a faded map in his study. He's being fed information, manipulated. We need to find his puppeteer. The ancient relic, the intricately carved wooden box, remained a mystery. Anya, the scientist, still couldn't fully explain its properties or its role in her time travel. She theorized it might be a localized temporal anomaly, a conduit for unforeseen energies. Kian, however, believed it was a guardian, a silent protector of the Lu lineage, and that it had chosen Anya, a healer from another time, to help restore balance when darkness threatened. They kept it safe, a silent testament to the extraordinary circumstances that had brought them together. Anya, with her modern understanding of psychology, suggested a different approach. People like Lu Jin are driven by fear and ambition. If we can exploit one, we might expose the other. He's trying to seize your inheritance. What if we make him think he's already won, but then subtly introduce an element of doubt, a flaw in his victory? One crisp autumn afternoon, as the leaves turned golden and red, Anya stood with Kian on a hill overlooking the thriving village. The clinic, a sturdy new building, stood proudly amidst the traditional homes. Children played in the fields, their laughter echoing in the crisp air. It was a scene of peace and progress, a future they had forged together. Their investigation began subtly. Anya, using her newfound acceptance among the servants, listened to gossip, observed interactions, and pieced together fragments of information. She noticed that Lu Jin frequently met with a seemingly innocuous merchant from a neighboring town, a man named Master Chen, who dealt in grain and textiles. On the surface, their meetings were about business, but Anya's keen eye caught the furtive glances, the hushed tones, and the almost imperceptible exchange of small, wrapped parcels. "Do you ever miss it?" Kian asked softly, sensing her contemplation. "Your time?" "He's not just a merchant," Anya told Kian one evening, sketching a crude diagram of the Lu estate and the surrounding village. "He's too well connected, too interested in the family's internal affairs, and he always seems to know what Lu Jin is planning before anyone else." Anya smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that reached her eyes. "Sometimes, a fleeting thought. The technology, the conveniences, but then I look at this." She gestured to the vibrant village. "And I see what we've built, what we've changed. And I realize my purpose was here, with you, with these people." Kian nodded, his eyes narrowed in thought. "Master Chen? He has always been an opportunist, but I never suspected him of being involved in something this deep. He has ties to some of the officials I was investigating before my incident." Kian took her hand, his grip firm and comforting. "Our destinies intertwined, Doctor. In the most unexpected way, they devised a plan. Anya, under the guise of needing specific herbs for her healing remedies, began to frequent Master Chen's shop in the village. She used her charm and her reputation as the miracle doctor to engage him in seemingly innocent conversations. She observed his habits, his associates, and his reactions. She noticed his meticulous record-keeping, a ledger he guarded with unusual zeal. Anya leaned her head on his shoulder, content. She was no longer the brilliant surgeon lost in a foreign past, nor the unwilling bride of a crippled man. She was Anya Lu, a healer, a partner, a woman who had found her true calling and her profound love in a time and place she never expected. The future, though still the 1990s, was bright with possibility, a testament to resilience, justice, and the enduring power of an unforeseen destiny. One afternoon, while Master Chen was momentarily distracted, Anya, with a surgeon's deftness, managed to briefly glimpse the ledger. It wasn't just records of grain and textiles. Interspersed among the legitimate entries were cryptic notations, dates, and names that seemed out of place. Her modern mind immediately recognized them as coded messages, perhaps financial transactions or rendezvous points. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more thrilling tales of unexpected destinies and unwavering courage, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Stay with us for the next one. And while you're here, check out our other videos. There's always more to explore. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. Meanwhile, Kian worked to subtly undermine Lu Jin's confidence. He allowed rumors to spread that he was considering a drastic, unexpected move regarding the family's assets, something that would throw Lu Jin's plans into disarray. The aim was to make Lu Jin nervous, to force him to consult his true masters. and thus expose them. The pressure mounted on Lu Jin. He became agitated, his smugness replaced by a desperate anxiety. He began to meet with Master Chen more frequently, their conversations more urgent, their exchanges more furtive. One night, Anya and Kian decided to act. They knew Master Chen kept his ledger hidden in a secret compartment in his shop. Under the cover of darkness, Kian, moving with the silent efficiency of a seasoned operative, disabled the shop's rudimentary security. Anya, with her delicate hands, located the hidden compartment and retrieved the ledger. Back at the estate, under the flickering lamplight of Kian's study, they began to decipher the cryptic entries. Anya's modern understanding of patterns and codes, combined with Kian's intimate knowledge of the local power players and their illicit activities, proved to be a formidable combination. The ledger was a treasure trove of incriminating evidence. It detailed a vast network of bribery, land speculation, and illegal trade, all orchestrated by a shadowy consortium of powerful individuals. The names listed were shocking high-ranking military officers, influential government officials, and even a few respected elders from neighboring clans. The crippled Major Lu was not just a victim, he was a target because he had stumbled upon this very web of deceit. The most chilling revelation, however, was a series of entries that directly implicated Lu Jin. He wasn't just a pawn, he was an active, albeit junior, participant in their schemes, providing insider information about the Lu family's assets and vulnerabilities, and the ancient pact that had forced Anya's marriage. It was a fabrication, a cleverly constructed lie designed to bring her into the fold, a disposable asset in their grand scheme to control Kian and his family's vast resources. Anya felt a cold dread settle in her stomach. Her time travel, once a random accident, now seemed intricately woven into this dangerous tapestry of corruption. She wasn't just a doctor from the future, she was an unexpected variable, a wrench thrown into the meticulously planned gears of a powerful, ruthless conspiracy. The web of deceit was far more expansive and dangerous than they had ever imagined, and they were now directly in its tangled center. The ledger, with its chilling revelations, had transformed Anya and Kian's alliance from a desperate partnership into a focused mission. They now had names, dates, and a clear understanding of the enemy's reach, the immediate threat. Master Chen was merely a conduit, but he was the most accessible link to the shadowy consortium. They needed to confront him, not just to gather more evidence, but to send a clear message their game was exposed. Their plan was meticulous, leveraging Kian's strategic mind and Anya's unique understanding of human behavior. They decided to corner Master Chen at his shop, a place he felt secure, and where he kept his most incriminating secrets. The goal was to rattle him, force him to reveal his true masters, or at least confirm their suspicions. One overcast afternoon, as the village market was winding down, Anya and Kian, under the guise of discussing a large purchase of medicinal herbs, entered Master Chen's shop. The air was thick with the scent of dried goods and old paper. Master Chen, a portly man with shifty eyes, greeted them with his usual obsequious smile, unaware of the trap closing around him. "So," Anya began, her mind already whirring, "who are these enemies? How deep does this corruption go?" "Master Chen," Kian began, his voice deceptively calm, "we have come to discuss something of great importance, something that transcends mere trade." He placed the ledger, wrapped in a plain cloth, on the counter. Anya gasped, her lungs burning, as she clawed her way back to consciousness. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and something acrid, like burnt wood. Her eyes fluttered open, struggling to focus. Gone were the gleaming chrome and advanced machinery of her 21st century hospital. Instead, she lay on a rough, straw mat in a dimly lit room, the walls made of mud and wood, a single flickering oil lamp casting dancing shadows. Panic, cold and sharp, seized her. This wasn't right. This wasn't possible. Master Chen's eyes darted to the bundle, a flicker of unease crossing his face. "Major Lu, I assure you, all my dealings are above board." A woman, her face etched with worry lines and dressed in simple, coarse fabric, knelt beside her, pressing a cool cloth to her forehead. "Are you awake, child?" she murmured in a dialect Anya barely recognized, yet somehow understood. "You've been out for hours. The elders are waiting." Anya stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "Are they Master Chen?" Or do they involve other kinds of transactions, transactions that are not recorded in plain sight? She unwrapped the ledger, revealing its worn cover.